Hey guys, thanks for tuning back in. So today I'm going to be talking about the right cartridge at the wrong time. That is, of course, 5.56. Just kidding. No, today I'm going to be talking about the 6.5 Grendel. This cartridge right here. This little cartridge it's extremely interesting because it never really caught on. And not like 300 Blackout did, not like 6mm arc is currently catching on. It never really seemed to make the same waves in the shooting industry that those two cartridges have, and it doesn't make sense why. Because if you look at what 6.5 Grendel does out of a small frame AR-15, this is a small frame AR. I mean, this will take any. I could take this 6.5 Grendel upper off of it and put any 5.56, any 300 Blackout upper on it, and it'll run just fine. There's nothing specific about this lower to shoot 6.5 Grendel. Now, this 6.5 Grendel fits on any small frame AR-15, and it provides some really surprising capabilities when you look at 5.56 and when you look at 6mm arc. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not a long-range target shooter. I'm definitely not a sniper. I mean, you guys know, you've seen me shoot. I'm pretty average. I'm not somebody who chases every ounce of performance out of the guns and the cartridges that I shoot. I mean, I like AKs. That should tell you all you need to know. But it still makes me kind of scratch my head and ask why. Why is 6mm arc catching on right now like it is? I mean, everybody wants a 6mm arc. Everybody wants to take their small frame AR-15 and shoot out to 1,000 yards. And they want to do it with 6mm arc. The 6.5 Grendel has been around for almost 20 years longer than 6mm arc, and it does just about everything 6mm arc does, and for cheaper. So let me give you some numbers real quick. 6.5 Grendel at the muzzle the muzzle velocity is 2580 with a 123 grain projectile. The muzzle energy is 1,818 foot-pounds with the 123 grain projectile. The ballistic coefficient for 6.5 Grendel is surprisingly high. It's 0.506. The 6.5 Grendel out of a small frame AR-15 is still supersonic at 1,000 yards. And the energy at 1,000 yards is around 400 foot-pounds, which, for perspective, a federal 124 grain HST plus P, what myself and many other people would consider the gold standard for defensive ammunition, has the same foot-pounds, 400 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. So at 1,000 yards, you can hit a target with the same amount of energy as a 124 grain HST plus P at 1,000 yards out of a small frame AR-15. And as of about 10 minutes before making this video, the price on 6.5 Grendel varied from like 60 cents a round for like PPU or the Wolf stuff to 90 cents a round for the Hornady 123 grain VMAX projectile, which is what those numbers are pulled from. Now, let's compare that to a cartridge similar to it, 6mm arc. Now, I'm giving you the numbers for 103 grain ELDX. Now, the muzzle velocity for 103 grain ELDX is 2460, so a little slower than the 6.5 Grendel. The muzzle energy for 103 grain ELDX is 1384 foot-pounds, so that's almost 500 foot-pounds less than the 6.5 Grendel. Now, the ballistic coefficient is slightly higher on the 6mm arc. It's 0.512 to 0.536. And like the 6.5 Grendel, the 6mm arc is still supersonic at 1,000 yards, and it has around the same energy at 1,000 yards as the 6.5 Grendel. Now, here's the catch. 6mm arc, the price as of about 5 minutes before making this video, The price for 6 millimeter arc is 91 cents to $1.20 a round. That's quite a bit more than 6.5 Grendel. Yeah, it's quite a bit more. And so that begs the question, if the numbers are so close between 6 millimeter arc and 6.5 Grendel, why did the cartridge that came first, the 6.5 Grendel, almost 20 years before the 6 millimeter arc, why didn't it catch on? Why? Well, it doesn't make sense to me. I kind of scratch my head and I'm like, is there one thing we can point to and say, aha, this is the nail in the coffin, or this is the Achilles heel of the 6.5 Grendel? It's a fantastic cartridge. This AR-15 here, it shoots the 6.5 Grendel, and it's comparable in recoil to a 7.62x39 AR. Or sorry, a 7.62x39 AK. It's comparable in recoil to an AK. So it's not a lot of recoil, and it gives you like hunting, small game hunting capability out to 1,000 yards. That's incredible to me. But so I think there's not one giant reason why the 6.5 Grendel never really caught on, but I think it's a couple different reasons. Now, the 6.5 Grendel it first hit the market in like 2003. And back in 2003, the gun community was a very different thing from what it is today, especially the long-range shooting community. Back in 2003, there wasn't this craze, this fad of like, scoped carbine, bro, kind of thing. And I don't mean to denigrate people that shoot scoped carbines out to long distances. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I know people who have very strong feelings against it. I know people who have very strong feelings for it. I don't really do it, so I don't really care one way or the other, if I'm being honest with you. But back in 2003, there wasn't the craze of everybody trying to shoot small frame AR-15s out to 1,000 yards. Back then in 2003, if you wanted to shoot out to 1,000 yards, you needed a cartridge like this. Everybody thought you needed this. That's 308. That's what you need if you want to shoot out to 1,000 yards. But funny enough, that cartridge right there, M80 ball, is subsonic at about 780, like 780 yards. It's not even supersonic out to 1,000 yards. So the 6.5 Grendel, I'm reading off some notes here in case you couldn't tell, is based on the 220 Russian cartridge. Now, I don't have a 220 Russian cartridge to show you guys, but I do have the parent case of 220 Russian, and that is this guy right here. You all know what cartridge that is. That's 7.62x39. This particular cartridge is some Chinese surplus stuff, some of the old steel core stuff that got banned for being armor piercing. It has a really strong ammonia smell when you shoot it. But that's the parent cartridge for 6.5 Grendel. And if you look at 6.5 Grendel, let's compare it to another cartridge based off of the 7.62x39. That is 5.45x39. Now, this is 6.5 Grendel here, and this is 5.45x39 here. These cartridges look so similar to each other. They're darn near almost the same overall length. This is a 7N6, and this is 123 grain, this is Wolf 6.5 Grendel. So these are both Russian cartridges. It looks so similar to each other. They look almost identical. Like, if I could look at this in a pile and say, oh yeah, that's 5.45x39. They look that alike to me. So I think one of the reasons 6.5 Grendel never caught on is what I just showed you. And that is Russian steel-cased ammunition. Now, let me explain that to you. Let me sort of make this argument real quick. Now, 6.5 Grendel, it offers really great performance at long range. That's kind of what sets it apart in small frame AR-15 cartridges. And when you have a country like Russia, back in 2003, 7N6 was coming in by the shipping container load. it was like sub 10 cents a round. 7.62 by 39 was coming in by the shipping container load. You could get a case of 7.62 by 39 delivered to your door for like $220. I mean, the Russians are just flooding the market with this cheap ammo, and it's not, the best quality ammunition, but it does typically go bang every time you pull the trigger. And frankly, that's good enough for most people, myself included. Now, when you have the market flooded with, really cheap ammo, that takes away the incentive for these major manufacturers like Winchester, like Federal, like Remington, these big American manufacturers. It kind of takes away the incentive for them to really invest a lot of money in getting a new cartridge like the 6.5 Grendel up and running. Now, Hornady did make some 6.5 Grendel, and there may be some other, I think there might be some other 6.5 Grendel loadings from a company besides Hornady, but by and large, it seems like American manufacturers didn't really want to touch the cartridge. And I think that's because they couldn't make the money on it that they wanted to, because of the abundance of cheap Russian steel-cased ammo. And now if you look at 5.45 by 39, that's a Russian cartridge, and Russia flooded the American market with like sub 10 cents a round 7.6. No American manufacturer besides Hornady ever touched that cartridge. There's no such thing as Federal 5.45 by 39 or Winchester or Remington 5.45 by 39, because the ammo is so cheap. There's the American manufacturers never had any incentive to make it, and it was only after that cartridge stopped coming in. Once it was banned, then American manufacturer AAC said, "Hey, we're going to make some 5.45 by 39." Now the jury's still out on if they ever will. They've teased it for a long time, and I'd like to see it on the market, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. I'd love to be wrong, but I'm not holding my breath. Now, I think that is one of the major reasons that American manufacturers never really hopped on the 6.5 Grendel train. On top of that, as I mentioned before, trying to shoot a small frame AR-15 out to 1,000 yards, it just wasn't really something that people did back in 2003. I mean, everybody, we kind of had this institutional knowledge of like, oh, 5.56 is only good out to 300 yards. You could shoot it out to 500 yards, but, you're really pushing it. And I've shot 5.56 out to 700 yards. And while I've shot it out to 700 yards, I wouldn't say it was good out to 700 yards, but out to 500 yards, hitting a 18-inch wide steel gong was pretty trivial with a crappy LPVO. So, there's this sort of mindset of like, if you want to shoot 1,000 yards, you got to get a 308 bolt gun or a 300 Win Mag bolt gun. Why would you even waste your time trying to shoot 1,000 yards with a small frame AR-15? Now, I realize, like, there are some people, even back then, I've found old articles in like American Rifleman and stuff. There's some people back then that sang the praises of 6.5 Grendel, and I think they're right to. I think they're right. A lot of those people that sang the praises of 6.5 Grendel are also singing the praises of 6mm arc right now. And if you look at the way that the cartridge 6.5 Grendel was marketed versus how 6mm arc is marketed now, the gun industry's approach towards marketing has just changed in general. In 2003, like, you wanted to read about a new cartridge or you wanted to read about a new gun, you did that in American Rifleman magazine or Recoil magazine. Nowadays, if you want to read about a new cartridge or you want to learn about a new cartridge or a new gun, you hop on YouTube and you type in what you want to look at, and you have 100 different, influencers making videos that are sponsored by the manufacturer of whatever product you want to see. I'm not foo-fooing that. I'm not, like saying that's wrong or anything. I'm just saying that the approach towards the distribution of media has shifted significantly since 2003. Print media is dying, frankly, and the way forward for gun manufacturers distributing the knowledge of their product is it's YouTube. It's YouTube. I mean, you look at Ian McCollum with making the Forgotten Weapons video about the brand new Aimpoint Koa or whatever it is they're calling it. I don't know. That's how manufacturers are distributing media. And you look at the 6mm arc when it first came out, it took YouTube, it took the shooting world by storm. I mean, everybody and their brother was talking about it. I think, the manufacturer, it's mostly a Hornady cartridge, although now you see 6mm arc being made by different manufacturers. You look at what they did. They got upper receivers made for that, ready to go with the ammunition at the same time. So that way, Jim Bob, with a ton of disposable income, sees a video of somebody shooting 1,000 yards with an AR-15, says, "Oh, I want to do that." So what does he do? Hops online, hops on Brownells, orders a 6mm arc upper, and he hops on AmmoSeek, finds Hornady, and boom, he can have that stuff shipped to his door in a week. Back in 2003, when 6.5 Grendel was released, that wasn't really the case. There aren't a whole lot of guns that were chambered at 6.5 Grendel versus the amount of guns that are chambered at 6mm arc. If you look at like 6.5 Grendel, you had the Vepers that were chambered in that. And funny enough, those Vepers, from what I've read and heard, would not shoot that steel-cased 6.5 Grendel very accurately at all. So I think that's one of the reasons why they never really took off. Because if you look at like KVAR, the last Vepers that they had were the 6.5 Grendel Vepers, and even those are gone now. But back then, ordering a 6.5 Grendel upper, you didn't really have a whole lot of choices. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know who makes this upper. This isn't my gun. I don't even know who made it. I know it's a JP Enterprises gas block and really a super boomer tube forend, but that's about all I can tell you about the upper receiver of this gun. There's no, as far as I can tell, there's no marking on the bolt carrier group or anything like that. And the lower, for your curiosity, it is a billet lower. Am I saying, is it billet? Yeah, I think it's billet. It has an integral trigger guard. It's a magnesium lower. It's made by Mag Tactical. And my buddy that owns this calls it the fire starter. Because if for some reason this lower ever caught on fire, you couldn't put it out because it's magnesium. Anyway, neither here nor there. Like Hornady got the cartridge to market, got the ammunition to back it up, and got the gun so that Billy Bob could hop online and have all that stuff at his door in a week. That wasn't really the case back in 2003. So I guess to sort of sum up the talking part of the video, leaf just fell, sorry. I think 6.5 Grendel was the right cartridge at the wrong time. I think if 6.5 Grendel had come out in 2020 versus 6mm arc, I think we would be talking, everybody would be wanting to get a 6.5 Grendel upper receiver for their small frame AR rather than 6mm arc. I think 6.5 Grendel is a fantastic cartridge. I think it makes a really great hunting cartridge, and I'm actually hopeful for its future because AAC Ammunition, PSA's ammo company, has started loading 6.5 Grendel, loading that cartridge, and it's sort of breathing some new life into the American market. Now, 6.5 Grendel's still coming in from overseas. PPU 6.5 Grendel, that's still about that's the ammunition that's like still 60 cents or so around. But overall, I'm optimistic for the gun's future in the United States. And I think I'm actually, having owned this, or not owned this, but having had this AR-15 in my possession that shoots 6.5 Grendel, I'm actually thinking about picking up a 6.5 Grendel upper for my AR lower. I think it would make a really awesome whitetail cartridge hunting deer. Or sorry, whitetail deer hunting cartridge. Sorry. A whitetail deer hunting cartridge, especially for the part of the country that I'm in Western North Carolina. Now, appreciate you guys watching the video. Don't click off just yet. I'm going to shoot the gun a couple rounds, so all you guys who, you know, hate only seeing talking videos can see shooting too. So stick around for a second. All right, see what it does to the steel at 100 yards. So, as you guys can see, the recoil it's pretty comparable to a 7.62x39 AK, and that Russian steel case stuff might actually have less recoil than 7.62x39. Overall, I think if you're thinking about hopping on the bandwagon of the scoped carbine and want to shoot your small frame AR-15 out to 1,000 yards, I would consider giving 6.5 Grendel a good look before you run out and buy a 6mm arc. Now, before you shred me in the comments, I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I will say 6.5 Grendel's cheaper to shoot than 6mm arc. Anyway, guys, I guess that kind of concludes things. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you would, please like the video. Please comment on the video. That really helps drive the algorithm. And yeah, stick around. I got more videos in the pipeline. Catch you guys later.